So we're about accepting the minutes. Our previous meeting was April 20th. We just mentioned that there was a new draft scoping document for Wingdale Solar. No action was taken, but that's what will come up tonight for the one of our planning board members needs to recuse himself, and we will be lacking a quorum. So like I said, a few minutes for Wingdale Solar. So for now, we're going to move on to, and that, like I said, that will be tonight when someone else arrives. So moving on to old business, Redless Private Family Cemetery. If you could please come to the podium.
Had reviewed the project previously. I had discussed that, one of the suggestions from the planning board was to move the proposed cemetery location further east, and she said areas. She said the better location, if you're going to move it, would be to move it west, which obviously she said couldn't do, because obviously we're hitting the boundary line and also going further towards the neighbors, which is what we don't want to be doing. But we also felt that this location was best not only because of the archaeological sensitive areas, but it's also the area that is
feet. This distance, it drops down to close to 560 feet, 562, 564. So I don't see how there's, as it was worded,
the screening that was proposed, we pointed out that, those pine trees don't really resemble white pines. They're more open at the bottom. They tend to, arborvitae is a solid evergreen screening that is put in with those on top. And I think we also we recommend that the screening be entirely evergreen, not staggered with openings, for example. So, yeah, those are I understand, what Shippo said without really giving you much detail, but I'm wondering, since you guys, the board didn't really take any other action, there's still an open.
at this time. Okay.
I'd be curious if the board would accept screening as the field is going to really be breaking up that use. It helps to alleviate the concerns that have been brought up by the neighbors. So it's a way to help both parties. Screen from the neighbors, not going to be visible, that was their main concern, and put it in the corner so that it doesn't break up the agricultural use of the property.
Can I ask what agricultural use is currently there and might be in the future?
Which right now it's being hayed, it's a hay field.
Okay. I mean, just the rectangular dimension of this, what is it, like 20 or
40 by 80.
Have to go around the cemetery entirely.
You have made your position clear. I was just curious if we had other directions from the board, if the screening would be acceptable, or if they need us to move it as well. Again, we've expended a lot of efforts on this application. This would, to move it, clients a lot of money for a rather small, low-impact project. And again, we feel
In, just a comment, in addition to the screening, would it be acceptable instead of raised stones to put footstones in? To
We can
make
certain-
it, to make it
less visible.
less visible? Just a thought.
Understood. Like I said, one of the reasons that we haven't provided designs for the headstones was because we weren't sure, we don't know even what's going to be available, or, but I can certainly bring that up to the owner.
Okay, thank you.
Any other members of the planning board wish to answer this question?
No. I'm just thinking about it if I were one of the neighbors. I think I would rather see the flat stones or angled flat stones rather than tree screening, because trees tend to grow up. And that's
Anyone else?
I'm okay with it with screening, as long as the screening is there.
Okay.
I'm okay with the present location.
Thank you.
All right. I
Okay.
think that's where we are right now, so.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the feedback. Where would this be scheduled on another 2 weeks or out a month to give us time? for
Well, I mean,
study?
what we need is a visual that would represent.
More acceptable visual,
Yeah.
understood.
And,
Yeah, I think
Some-
we just found 10 to 60 feet is what online is telling us.
10 to 60 feet?
Yeah.
Okay.
But white pines also, get big. Bald eagles
Right.
nesting them, so.
No, but to your point, I mean, the next meeting is scheduled for May 18th.
If we don't have any plans, we'll request an adjournment.
So the next meeting after that would be then, June 1st, yeah. With a deadline of May 13th.
May 13th for the June 1st one?
May 13th deadline for the June 1st meeting,
Okay.
yes.
So would you rather have the next meeting scheduled for June 1st?
I believe so, since the deadline for the May 18th meeting is already passed.
Okay. All right.
All
Thank
right.
you very much.
Thank you.
Environmental impact statement, which was acknowledged on April 6th and circulated, and a public scoping hearing was set for tonight, which was the last meeting. I think the revisions that we did were dated April 17th. So that's the red line version that was also posted alongside the applicant's version on the website. The purpose of the hearing is to solicit comments on the draft scoping document, the content, the methodologies that are set forth to address the impacts that were identified in the positive declaration. The scope also includes, at the end of it, a description of topics that are not considered as of now in the draft scope and are not going to be considered in DEIS based on deliberations by this board back in December, January, even before that, on environmental issues and filling out the EAF Part 2, getting to their determination of significance. So the main purpose of this meeting is to take comments on the content of the scope. It's really not meant to be a back and forth or a question and answer session. What's going to happen is the board is required to adopt a final scope within 60 days of receipt of the draft, and that puts us around the end of May. I think it was May 29th is what we calculated as the day that would be, May 26th. There's only meeting one other time between now and then, which would be May 18th. We'd like to use that date as a target to finalize this scope. So we'll take all the comments tonight, we'll hear what the public has to say, what other agencies have had to say, including the ZBA if they want to raise anything, because they were copied on the circulation. And we'll develop a final draft for review at that meeting. I think we can extend the comment period a couple days. I think our recommendation is that after tonight, we just leave the comment period for scoping open till Wednesday night, or Wednesday at noon.
Wednesday
I'm sorry.
noon.
Which will be comments can be taken in writing to the, that's scoping. There's going to be another opportunity for public hearing on this, because once the scope is finalized, the applicant then goes and prepares the draft environmental impact statement. We review that, the lead agency reviews that for completeness against this scope. If it's found deficient, they go back and revise it, they come back. Once it's determined to be complete, meaning that it's meeting what the scope set forth, doesn't mean we agree with anything it says, but it's meeting the scope, then there's a public hearing set on the DEIS, and that's the hearing that talks about where comments are accepted on what it's saying about impacts and mitigation. We're not there yet. Right now, we're just scoping what that document's going to look like. So that's the overview. I don't know if you wanted me to go through the revisions that we did for the scope, or save that for after the applicant presents.
Yeah, let's do that after.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the board. Again, my name is Tom Saunders. I'm with Wick Energy, representing the applicant, Wingdale Solar. With me tonight, I have Brendan Duffy, who's our environmental permitting project manager, Kristen Pratt, our attorney, and Sheila Ransbottom from Wendell, who is our engineering partner on the project. We are having the meeting transcribed, so just wanted to introduce them, get everyone in the record, and wanted to just mention that at the request of the planner.
Did you having a transcribe based off of the audio that
Correct.
we're transmitting, the audio and visual?
Yeah, that's
we're
correct.
transmitting. Okay. Because not normally, I mean, this doesn't happen often here, but a lot of times for scoping sessions or things like that, we'll have a stenographer sitting there typing away. But
Yeah, we had trouble finding some.
sure, understand.
So we will have a transcription made, and we'll share that when it's available.
Okay.
So Planner Warner went through a good chunk of what I had. I'll just recap for people who may be less familiar with the projects, some of the basics here. So Wingdale Solar, it's a 4.3 megawatt AC ground-mounted solar generating facility proposed on a 48.3 acre lot in the rural or RU zoning district in Hamlet of Wingdale. It's located off New York State Route 55. Access driveway is directly across from Redwood Court. And the system will occupy approximately a 16.62 acre chunk of that parcel. Currently, we are seeking site plan, special use permit, and erosion sediment control permit approval from the planning board. The project will also require some area variances, and a separate application has been submitted to the zoning board of appeals. And the public hearing for that currently technically held open for that application while the planning board as the agency works through seeker, with obviously the ZBA identified as an involved agency and coordinated review. So at the March 2nd, 2026 planning board meeting, the board voted to issue a positive declaration pursuant to seeker after going through the FEAF parts 2 and 3. The declaration identifies the potential for the project to have some moderate to large environmental impacts. And those areas identified are visual and aesthetic resources, noise, consistency with community plans, consistency with community character, as well as environmental justice, just to gather additional information on existing conditions. And the impacts the proposal would have on noise-sensitive receptors. We hope we can discuss some of the details in that section between the planner and the board as well. Just had a couple questions on some of the markups that were made. Consistency with community plans, the DEIS will look at the zoning patterns of the area and how the character of the site and surroundings, the impact the project may have on those, and again, any mitigation measures that can be implemented to address those impacts. And then for environmental justice and DACs, as stated, the scoping document, DEIS.
Page 4. The overview of the potential impacts that were in the positive declaration, which was, as the applicant mentioned, visual resources, aesthetic resources, noise, consistency with community plans, consistency with community character, and then the environmental justice and disadvantaged communities. The way that we edited the following sections, which start on page 5, was really just the way the document's going to be organized. So our edits begin on page 6, and this was just taken from like that we seen other towns use. basically just going through what's the required content and elements of what the DEIS should contain. Customary to provide a table or a list. And then we're getting into the analysis of impacts. So following chapter 1, which is really just introducing and community character. And the way that we wanted to make it clear was that within each one of these chapters, I'm scrolling down to 10, the way they'll be organized is there'll be an existing conditions section, a potential impact section, and a mitigation section. The applicant had alternatives originally within each chapter, which isn't usually done. It's better to have that as its own standalone chapter, incorporated into the chapter as well. And then mitigation, you'll notice throughout this, we're keeping it general, like identify those mitigation measures that are going to mitigate potentially identified impacts. So again, we're not identifying the impacts yet. The DEIS will do that, and the mitigation will be based on what those are. So we can't really state what that is just yet, but for something with vegetation or other means is appropriate. So for the noise chapter, we just added a little more to the existing conditions. We're asking that there's actually a baseline measurement done, so that can be compared to what the specifications of the equipment, assessing that noise on sensitive receptors nearby, which residences along neighborhoods nearby, including Highview Drive, assessing those levels against what the code says, as well as DEC guidance on mitigating and addressing noise impacts. So kind of a two-tier approach, looking at it from the lens of the town code that you have for noise, plus the DEC's guidance on noise impacts. So a pretty detailed scope for the potential impacts, but it really just has to do with, again, what are the noise levels that equipment related, how that, a lot of stuff was cut out, but then alternatives, chapter 7, which is on page 18. So the applicant had proposed a few alternatives that, if you go by the seeker standard, didn't seem to be such as, other as of right things like a supermarket or senior housing. If they're not really within the capabilities of the applicant, it's not really appropriate to have them as alternatives. And that's just what the guidance says. So we tried to focus in on alternatives for this project. And agricultural resources, historic and cultural resources. So that's how we've reorganized it. Obviously, we'd take comments on this version since it's the latest board's considering.
And just this last bit about the attachments, attachment 1, updated site plan.
I think that was just, they had a site plan attached to their draft for the scope.
Right, okay.
So I excluded it from this because I was just working off the Word version. But
Placeholder.
the version that's on the website that was their submission has that site plan on it.
Sort of address our comments to this. There's a couple things I think we'd like to discuss with the board present, if that's okay. It shouldn't take too long, but just with regard to chapter 3 and the existing conditions for noise, I think we're looking at this and we're thinking, okay, well, it's a solar generating facility, so it's off at night. So we're thinking that a 24-hour continuous monitoring might be a little out of the ordinary for that. Obviously, we would be looking to confirm that there's zero noise being emitted during nighttime hours.
What's the prediction?
I don't see the harm in having the 24-hour baseline. Even if your argument in the DEIS impact analysis